Hello, everyone. How's it going? And welcome to another weekly episode where we look at book covers, talk about why they are good, and offer a few ideas on how they could be even better, and then let you vote for your favorite in the link down below. Speaking of down below, there are a whole bunch of things down there. There's a bell, there's a subscription button, there's a like button, a share button, a whole bunch of links down there. And if you collect on all of them, that would be awesome. But the bell notification, subscribe notification helps support these artists and authors, and it helps support me, and I greatly appreciate it. The other way you can support me is you can click on my author link down below and look at some of my books and see if maybe one of them would interest you, and I would appreciate that. The biggest news is that we finished the October voting, so we now have an announcement for the 2021 M.L.S. Weech book cover of the month of October, and that winner is You Give Magic a Bad Name by Ty Burson. So this cover really kind of stood out because of the quality of the rendering of the subject and just the way the light was done. It's a real dynamic cover, even though it's essentially a portrait, but it's just great light. It's just really interesting. And so this book will join 11 others in the 2021 M.L.S. Weech Book Cover of the Year competition. And that will happen once we pick all of the winners. But we're not done yet, because even though we named a winner for October, the November book cover of the month is moving forward, and the winner for the second week of November is Old Tech by D, I believe his name's David, but D. Edward, and that's this cover right here. This is just super cool. The blue overlay is a little weird, and the stripe on the left wasn't my favorite, but dude, that mech in the background and the dude walking in the sci-fi armor, it's so detailed, it's so cool. It's really pressing all the right sci-fi buttons. And so congratulations to the designer and to Mr. Edward, and that will be in the November book cover of the month competition, which we will launch when we pick 2 more winners. That means we got to look at the nominees for this week. The first cover we're going to talk about is Return by Alexander Damian. I'm going to bring this guy up before I talk about it. So I like the silhouette. I'm kind of a sucker for silhouettes. Silhouettes are a very polarizing thing, but I'm partial to them. And I love that the silhouette seems to be running along the text of the book. And I think the theme for this week, even though I never really pick a theme, but then I notice one, is text that's used and integrated into a design, which is something I just love so much, when the text is more than a thing that you put on a cover. So here it appears that he's running across the text. I'm not really sure what's going on with, like, is he holding some sort of device or weapon or what's going on there, but that's okay. It's really more about the cityscape and the silhouetted figure running. The suited model in the upper portion is not accentuated. You notice that as a designer because his eyes are not there. And when you crop out someone's eyes, you're really not going to connect with them. So really, you're just kind of looking for that super sci-fi spy angle. And then you have the silhouetted figure that's driving the bulk of this design. It's clever. It's nice use of integrating text into a design, and is very, very cool to look at. The next cover we're going to look at is Redshift by R.M. Olson. This is a sci-fi cover. It's a pretty standard ship planetscape that you look at. So the exploding planet, or at least the backlit planet, I'm not sure which one of those it is. It does some interesting things. It doesn't really follow the rules of light. If you're backlighting something, then that whatever it is you're backlighting is typically going to be silhouetted. Now, I suppose you could have a fill flash the size of another planet, or a spaceship at the very least, filling in the details. But I'm willing to let that kind of go, because the detail of the ship is significant and interesting to look at. And then the way that they took the text and sampled the color that they used for the planet, or at least the light wrapping through the planet, connects everything together. And the ship kind of sort of looks like Millennium Falcon, so that's going to get a little bonus points from me anyway. So even though it really doesn't follow the rules of light, I wish I had some sort of explosion. I mean, it's theoretical that there could be a star reasonably close. Obviously, if we're too close, it would melt. But that would also explain how the figure is both backlit and frontlit. I just wish there was a little bit of rim light at the very least. Whenever you backlight something, even if you use a fill flash, there's typically some sort of white line, a white line of light called rim light, wrapping around the vessel or the whatever you're lighting. So even though the lighting isn't great, the color, the tonality, and the way the text is laid out, they're still worthy of note. So, you know, I'm not really dogging on it. Obviously, I nominated it. Maybe you'll vote for it as your favorite down below. But that's the light leaves a lot to be desired. The next cover is super, super interesting because of the way they use the text. So this cover looks three-dimensional because the text is flattened and the figure is standing on the text. And when you create shapes and when you put one on top of another, it creates dimension. So even though this is a two-dimensional image, the fact that that figure is standing on text and then that text is layered. So you have the figure, you have the text, and then you have a cityscape below. You create dimension, and I couldn't be more tickled by the way someone uses text in designing this thing. The figure is interesting. I've always been drawn to red hair, and so that's going to draw my attention. It goes all the way back to my Phoenix Saga Jean Grey days as a wee lad. And so all these things kind of tie together to create a very visually interesting image. I wish the figure was turned. Now it could be that, you know, it looks like she's about to dive into this cityscape and that kind of thing. I'm never really going to be too thrilled when I'm looking at the back of a subject. But if you're going to make me look at the back of a subject, make it look like she's about to jump off a tower that's composed of text. And then I will get over it pretty quickly. So I just think that's a super dynamic image. And I'm very pleased by it. The next one, we got to be getting into the holiday season, right? But I don't have any, you know, Halloween covers for you. But here's Midnight in Everwood, which is a new take on the Nutcracker Prince. The color is interesting and fascinating. The composition is super amazing. If you look in there, you'll see that this little evergreen tree is just ever so slightly off from the ballet dancer in the center. I love the repose position of the ballet dancer. Yes, I know what that is because I had to do research for it in one of my books, which I'll mention a little bit later. But the point is, the text is placed perfectly in the frame created by the forest, which leads you down to the ballet dancer in a very ballet-looking pose. I was intrigued by the use of blues to purples and how they, what's the word I'm looking for? How the gradient, it's not like a true gradient, but the various shifts in shades in hue create depth in and of themselves. And that is a pretty cool trick. The next cover we're going to talk about is simply called Rook. It's by Aaron Marquise and Adam Kovic. I read the names before I show the pictures because then I don't forget to read the names. So this robotic figure with a rifle in this little field is a very minimalistic cover. Kind of reminds me of WALL-E in a way, which might be why I picked it. I think WALL-E is a very underrated Disney Pixar film. But you know, what if WALL-E were like, I look at that, I go, what if WALL-E were like a soldier robot? What would the story have been like? So this doesn't have a whole lot of great compositional elements. The rendered figure, it's dead center in the frame, and it's not framed by anything. It's not surrounded by anything. It doesn't have any lead direction. The shadow might be a little interesting, but I can't see the whole shadow. Really hard to kind of make out what the figure looks like, but just the stark contrast in this cover was enough to stop me. And all you're looking for in a book cover is stopping power. If you can get a viewer to stop on your image, then you've done your job. The rest is up to the author and his book blurb and the reviews. The cover's job is to stop the viewer, and the contrast did that for me with this cover. The next one we're going to talk about is the Windward King. So this cover by, the book is by K.T. Ivanrest, which I just think it's an amazing name. But this cover has a lot of the old Western hero themes, has a lot of the common fantasy tropes. It's this figure on a standing before a sunset. All of these design things are simplistic, but when you add them all together, you have a beautiful, beautiful cover with great text that leads you down to a central figure, a rising sun, which is a brighter element. So a few covers ago, I'm like, I don't like when they're backlit and they're not silhouetted. Whatever he's standing on is reflective. You can tell because there's a reflection of the rising moon or the rising sun, whichever you want to call it. And if it's reflecting off a surface, it's going to naturally fill in the subject. So this has a better demonstration of how light works. It's a better photo that's truer to the rules of what light does in the world scientifically. But this figure is beautifully placed, centered and balanced on the asymmetrically, but still balanced on the overall design. The text outweighs the rest of the figure, but it leads you to it. And then the mountains lead you back up to the text. So everything kind of keeps you bouncing up and down as you look at the image, and that holds attention. And I just love the color, even though it's, it's not monochromatic, but there aren't a lot of colors in this. But the warmth of the gold yellow color that they're using is just such a great, perfect rendering of that color that I couldn't resist looking at it. If this were back in the days when I read more often, I read a lot, but I only read so many things. But if I had time to read more things, this would be something that I would pick up just on the cover alone. And the last one is one I hope you guys are all going to read, because it's mine. This is the cover for Hazel, the new graphic novel. Hazel was created by my friend from junior high school, Colin Fogel. So he is the creator, the artist, the pencils. I'm just the chucklehead he found to write the actual story. So this is our new project. When I last looked, we were somewhere in the 150th ranked on Amazon. We got as high as number 37, and you guys can help keep us in the rankings and keep the momentum for this graphic novel going. It's about 84 pages, depending upon how you count, and it's got bonus art, which causes the page count to go up. So it's a beautiful comic. It's the story of a team of female operatives, and they're females because women are typically smaller and more slender. And so they are physically capable of going down these tubes into the lower levels of society where all the criminal elements and things are going around doing dastardly things. So these spec ops folks are able to go down there and protect the people who dwell in the cities that have been built on the bones of generations of old. And Hazel just made the team, and she wants to prove herself, but she's a little overzealous. So I don't publish very, very quickly, but when I do, obviously, if I'm going to talk about how to design covers, how to design books, and how to tell stories, how can I not put my own work up here? And Colin is just a tremendous artist, as you can see by the cover. I think the text is a little quirky, but it's still legible and it's unique. And quirky works when it's unique and it's a short word in a large font, and that's why this is successful. Hazel is rendered wonderfully. For those of you wondering, that's a bodysuit. That's not actual flesh, but the costumes that they wear when they go down there, when they go down and do their jobs, is everything is stylistically in such stylized in such a unique way. The opportunity I had when Colin asked me to contribute a overall plot and some basic text, I couldn't resist it, and I hope you guys will give Hazel a try, and I hope you'll support it by voting for it in the link down below. But that means you all have the choice. You have the power to decide which of these stunning covers is going to move on to the November Book Cover of the Month contest after we pick one more next week. So that's all we have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a wonderful weekend. And as always, may God be with you.